And at long last, we have Group C of Asian World Cup qualifying predictions for the October window. Guys, let's not waste any time here. Drop the video a like if you could. That would be much appreciated. And hit subscribe so you do not miss future Asian footy content here on Deadball TV, including multiple live streams for the upcoming window. Let's jump straight into Australia versus China in Adelaide. Now, in the 2022 cycle, both of these games were played at neutral venues due to the pandemic. Australia winning the first one 3-0 before drawing the second 1-1 after a late Wu Lei penalty. Now, Tony Popovich has now assumed control of the Socceroos after Graham Arnold stepped down. And good lord, he could not have gotten an easier intro match than China at home. China are looking well on their way to being the worst team in round 3 of World Cup qualifying ever. Now, I have good news and bad news for Australia. The good news is that you're playing China at home, which is always great, and that Jordan Boss is back in the lineup, and they kind of need that man, especially going forward. Now, the bad news is that Alessandro Cercati, who I thought was Australia's best player in the last window, has torn his ACL, and it looks like he's going to be out for, at least a year, so I don't know how many qualifying matches he's going to miss. That's a big one. Now, how is Tony Popovich going to approach this game? What is his style going to be with Australia? I have no idea, and quite frankly, I do not care. This needs to be a decisive victory for Australia. If you look at how they played in the last window, it was a disgrace against Bahrain. It was a disgrace against Indonesia. If they have a third disgraceful showing in a row, then I'm going to have to go full Darth Vader. You have failed me for the last time. Now, for the Chinese national team, there's not really a massive hope here that I can see other than you look at Australia's back line, Harry Sutar, Aziz Behich, Cameron Burgess, and you say, okay, that's pretty damn slow. I think there is an opportunity for China to catch Australia out on some counterattacks. But this is the same China that conceded 2 set-piece goals in the same game to 10 men Saudi Arabia, and Australia are kind of beast mode with corner kicks, with set pieces, so I see this being a very difficult match for the Chinese. A new manager bounce plus a really poor opponent has me going 2-0 Australia in this game. Next up, we have Bahrain versus Indonesia and Rifa. This match is insanely important, and I probably don't need to tell anybody that who's watching this video. You guys already know. I kind of see this as the winner of this match goes through to round 4 of qualifying. If this match ends up being a draw, then both teams will see it as they survived. They lived to fight another day. But as of right now, it is advantage Bahrain because of what they did against Australia, picking up the 3 points in that last window. Now, Bahrain are not very good, but in general, they tend to avoid bad losses, and regardless of what all the Indonesians watching this video will think, losing to Indonesia at home is a bad loss. I was looking at Bahrain's form since 2023, and most of their losses are against, quote, powerhouse teams in Asia, namely Japan twice, South Korea. They have lost to the UAE, and the only bad one that kind of stands out is against Kuwait. Now, a crazy stat for you, and one that the Indonesians will appreciate, is that Bahrain, since 2002, so if we go back 2 years, have 7 losses at home. That is abysmal. I talked about Iraq in Group B having one of the best, if not the best, home records in nation football. I mean, Bahrain might have the worst. Now, for Indonesia, they are continuing to bring in players who, let's be honest, you guys have never seen play, but they do play abroad in Europe in impressive leagues, and they're going to continue to elevate the technical level of this national team. That fact aside, I think Indonesia definitely smells blood in the water right now. Bahrain is the perfect pot 4 team for Indonesia to try to steal a game against. They have a poor home record, defensively very poor. You look at the clean sheet record for Bahrain, it's not looking good outside games against Yemen. Low threat from set pieces, Bahrain aren't really doing anything from that. And lastly, they keep the ball out wide in possession. There's not really a central attacking playmaker for Bahrain that could threaten Indonesia, and we saw this against Australia. It was a big problem where basically Indonesia just let Australia have the ball out wide, and Australia couldn't do anything with it. I think Bahrain are going to have to approach the game in a similar way. Now, here's the thing, though. Shin Tae-yong, even though I'm a massive fan of his, I think he's one of the best managers in Asia, he has not beaten, and I said beaten, not drawn. He has not beaten. He has not defeated a noteworthy team in Asia outside of Vietnam. Now, Bahrain are hardly a noteworthy side, but this is still going to be something Shin Tae-yong has not been able to do with Indonesia thus far. Lastly, Indonesia, if they win, which they definitely can in this match, I think they're going to have to approach the game differently from the last window. In the last window, it was pretty much 10 minutes of attacking football in both games, and then they just kind of defended the rest of the match. I don't think that strategy is going to work against Bahrain, and I really want to see how offensive Shin Tae-yong sets up this team. This one is an incredibly close game to call. I really hate Indonesia predictions because, again, they just introduce new players every window, and how the hell am I supposed to know how these guys are going to look? I mean, nobody knows. You're just blind guessing, but I'm kind of feeling either a 0-0 or a 1-1 draw in this one. I just think beating Bahrain and Rifa is a little soon for the Indonesians. I know they'll be pissed at me in the comments and say I have zero ball knowledge. I think if there's a team that wins this game, I would lean Indonesia, but again, I think Bahrain and how annoying they are, man, I'm just fascinated. I want to see how this match goes down. Next up, we have Saudi Arabia versus Japan in Jeddah, and this is a juicy matchup. I mean, this is one of the greatest fixtures in Asian football, but it is currently a very big ask for the Saudis. They have some big omissions in the squad. No Mohamed Kano, obviously for the suspension where he kicked a Chinese player in the ball sack. Al-Bulahi, the center back, is out, as is Alawais, the starting goalkeeper. Fun fact, Japan has never beaten Saudi Arabia away in a competitive match. In fact, in the last two World Cup cycles, because this is now the third World Cup cycle consecutively that these two teams are in the same group, Saudi Arabia have won both of those games 1-0, the last one being scored by Al-Burakan, who is in the squad this time around, so maybe he can recreate some of that magic. Now, can the Saudis make it a third win over Japan in a row? That is a big ask right now. If Saudi Arabia can beat Japan, then there is a massive narrative shift, and I would even say a trajectory shift for Saudi Arabia under Mancini. Like, there is not a manager in world football that I can think of that needs a bigger win more than Mancini. I've even seen reports that Saudi Arabia are in contact with Hervé Renard to bring him back, so they are itching for any excuse to get rid of Mancini. And if I know that, the players know that, and the players love Hervé Renard. They don't love Mancini. Are they really going to get up against Japan in this game? I mean, there's a chance, but I think there's also a chance that they kind of down tools a little bit. Japan look invincible in their new 3-4-3 formation as well. I think it's going to be really tough for Saudi Arabia to find any weaknesses there. And the Saudis themselves, they still can't score. They do not have a 9 in this team who can put the ball in the back of the net, and playing out from the back has been a bit of an issue for the Saudis to start qualifying. Even Indonesia pressed them for a goal in the first match day. So what are they going to do against the Japanese press? Like, I just think it could get ugly. My prediction for this one, I'm going a little bullish. I'm thinking either a 2-0 or a 3-1 for Japan, which would be historic. But we're seeing history made left and right in this Asian World Cup qualifying cycle already, so why not add another piece, right? I simply don't see Saudi Arabia winning this game unless Moriyasu has one of his tinkering moments where he decides to have an absolute howler with either the lineup or the player selection. Moving on to Japan versus Australia in Saitama. Now, spoiler alert, I'm going live for this game. So if you want to see that live stream, another reminder to hit subscribe. We'll be kicking off about 10 minutes before the game starts. Now, Japan did the double over Australia in the last cycle, including a very dramatic late winner, 2-0 off a brace from Kaoru Mitoma that pretty much sealed Japan's qualification and doomed Australia to finish third in the group and have to go through the whole processing cycle. Crazy stat, Australia somehow have not beaten Japan since 2009. That was 10 matches ago. Since that point, Japan have 6 wins in 3 draws versus the Socceroos, which is crazy given how strong both of these two teams are within Asia. Obviously, Japan are the favorites, but the fact Australia, even under Postecoglou, couldn't sneak one, that's kind of crazy. Also, given the fact that whatever people want to think, this is a rivalry game, right? This is one of the matches in which the powerhouses in Asia go head-to-head, and do not try to tell me there ain't a little bit of World War II residue dripping off on this fixture. Come on, y'all. Now, for me, Japan are simply cooking with the wok way too hot for Australia to be the team to kind of humble them, especially in Saitama. For me, it's more, I want to see if Australia can be the first team to put Japan on the back foot. I think in the first matchup against Bahrain and China, Japan literally was not even tested. Now, maybe the Saudis give them the test in Jeddah. I think that's very possible. But again, how does Popovich approach this one? I don't have the slightest clue. I think on the bright side for Australia, they don't have a ton of expectation, at least from the rest of Asia in this match. I mean, Japan are the favorites. They're supposed to win. So could that be a bit freeing? Could that let them play a bit looser? Again, relying on the new manager bounce a little bit as well. I don't think so, dude. I'm seeing Japan winning this one 2-0, maybe even 3-0 again. God, I'm having some massive scorelines for Japan here. This is a rivalry game, right? But I just need to see somebody slow down Japan before I'm going to drop my score predictions. I went conservative last time, and they scored 12 goals, okay? This time I'm going a little bullish. Now Japan will probably only score 2 goals total in this window, but that's just how being a YouTuber goes. Next, let's move on to China versus Indonesia in Qingdao. So a doubleheader away for the Indonesian national team. Somehow this is the first time these teams have played in 11 years, which is kind of crazy. I see this game very simply. Let me try to break it down for y'all. China equals, in terms of strength level, the Vietnamese national team. Indonesia currently own Vietnam. Therefore, I think, at least on paper, this should be a very winnable game for Indonesia. If they can just approach this the same way that they've been beating up the other Southeast Asian teams, they should be able to beat China, especially when you look at how Thailand gave it to the Chinese in round 2. They were just a little lucky and couldn't finish. Now, I said couldn't finish because who else cannot finish? Oh, that's right. Indonesia. Indonesia do not have goal scorers in this team. So even though China might be down bad, even though they might be finished, Indonesia still has to put the ball in the back of the net. And I feel like I'm the only goddamn person who understands that playing defense is way easier than playing offense. It is way easier to defend in football than to create good chances. That's why teams with less talent are able to defend, because you kind of just got to be athletic and move as a unit and kind of cut out passing lanes and not concede great chances. And that's what Indonesia's done. They've not conceded great chances. But now you're the favorite. Even though the game's in Qingdao, Indonesia, trajectory-wise, is definitely the favorite. I mean, they're holding on by a thread here. But what can Indonesia do? Can they play the type of ball they need to play with possession, creating enough chances to score against the Chinese national team that is still really annoying at home? My prediction for this game, I am going to say Indonesia take this one 1-0. I think it's going to be very close. I am going to be shocked if this is a blowout. Like, if Indonesia can score 3 here, that would be insane. Again, just because we haven't seen that from the Indonesians yet. And China, they're kind of playing for pride here. Like, they're not dead in the water, right? I feel like everybody is acting like the Chinese are just completely finished, myself included. If they beat Indonesia at home, they're right back in contention for round 4. So, like, they're not dead. They're not dead because of how qualifying is. You can finish 4th and still be alive. The Chinese, under Ivankovic, who did good things with Oman, he'll be looking at this and saying, okay, I can at least get a draw. Like, the Chinese will be feeling they could even take 3 here. I disagree, but this is going to be a really, really close game, in my opinion. I think the game plan for China and what Ivankovic is going to do, if I had to guess, is he's going to come out defensively in the first half, survive the initial punch, the inevitable punch that is going to come from Indonesia. Indonesia like to come out swinging, and then they kind of die off and gas out. I think China's going to wait for them to gas out and then try to play more offensive ball in the second half. And I'm really curious what the attendance is going to be like in this game, because even though China, look, they're not good at all, those fans show up. They sell out most of their games. So is there going to be a massive Indonesian presence, kind of like what we saw when they played Saudi Arabia? I genuinely have no idea. We're about to find out. I'm just saying, man, do not be surprised if this is somehow a 0-0 draw. Lastly, we have Saudi Arabia versus Bahrain in Jeddah. Early spoiler, I do think the Saudis get a win here. I do not think Saudi Arabia is going to play their first 3 games at home in a qualifying cycle and not have a victory. Like, that would be, I mean, I think Mancini's done, but he's certainly done if that were to be the case. Suspensions and injuries aside for the Saudis, they have more attacking firepower and attacking tools than Australia did. Like, Australia couldn't do anything against Bahrain because they played one-dimensional football. I don't think the Saudis play like that. I still think they have creative midfielders. I think they're going to lean on Al-Dasari and Al-Jawari to kind of create chances both out wide and in the middle. They have guys who can take you on. Australia don't have that. I think Bahrain are going to struggle. I also think the Saudi back 3, even though they don't have Abdullahi, I think they're going to cope well with kind of Bahrain's 2-man attack up top. Now, just because I think Saudi Arabia are going to win does not mean I think they're going to blow out Bahrain. I'm kind of thinking a 1-0 for Saudi Arabia here, maybe a 2-0 if they could score early and Bahrain have to actually play football. I'm thinking on the fly, is this a rivalry game? I don't know if it's considered a rivalry game. I would think Saudi's rivals are more Qatar and Iran, but maybe Bahrain just regionally, just being kind of like a Middle East or Arab derby here. Maybe that makes things a little bit hotter contested as well, but Bahrain, man, they're not interested in playing ball this qualifying cycle. They won't care that I'm saying this because any Bahrainis watching this will agree with me. They cannot come out in Jeddah and start attacking the Saudis and put them on the back foot. They're going to get exposed. They don't even have a good back line. They don't even have a very good goalkeeper, they being Bahrain. If they do that, I think the Saudis running up on them. So just be prepared to see kind of a similar approach for Bahrain in every single match this entire cycle. That's the video, guys. You let me know how you feel about my predictions down below in the comments. Go ahead, tell me how I'm an idiot for thinking that Indonesia aren't taking 6 here. It's okay. I know it's inevitable. It's fine. I hope you guys still enjoyed, even if you disagree with me. I hope you understand my position. I just need to see a little bit from a couple different teams in this group, Indonesia included. Guys, last reminder to hit subscribe so you do not miss more Asian footy content here on Deadball TV. A like on the video would be much, much appreciated, and I'll see you guys in the next one.